welcome. Now, Deb, please tell us about your first experience as a breeder and owner of Arabian horses.
Originally, I started with my mother, and we had a breeding farm in the state of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And Michigan is very cold. And I remember one of the very first years, my mother and I, we would watch the foaling from the hayloft, and we'd be in a sleeping bag with an electric blanket in there. And we would peek out and we would look through the cracks whenever we would hear something. And in this one particular time, at the very beginning of our breeding program, we went down there. Sasha was having her foal. She had the foal, but then she wanted to lay back down again. And sure enough, if she didn't have a second foal being delivered. And so that was one of our very first experiences. And even though the mare had been ultrasounded, there was we did not see the twins. But it was such an experience that I shared with my mother. And what would make that experience even more for me to be committed to horses and racing and insurance and all of it was because the twins, the first one was very healthy,
mm-hmm.
and she was a filly. And then the second one was a colt, and he was very small. And we gave the filly a new antibacillus paste to help for the scours when the mare came to heat. It ended up killing the foal within 2 days of administering that. But when we took the mare and the two babies up to Michigan State, because we had not given it to the colt who was weaker and it lived, they were able to help prove that it was the antibacillus paste that was killing the foals. And there had been quite a few foals that had died. And so I kind of think that kind of spurred me into realizing that there was a need. And since my father was in the insurance industry and I loved horses, I wanted to combine that. And so that's when I started to decide I wanted an insurance program. And I ventured with underwriters to achieve that. And when we think about one of your questions of the problems and the challenges that women face, I'm 70 years old. So back in the 70s, when I had graduated from high school, obviously going into my father's insurance business made sense. But because I was a woman, I was not allowed to be hired by my father's insurance company that had him hired. When they found out that I had gone ahead and gotten my insurance license with another insurance carrier, they demanded that my father remove me from his office, and they did. And I then started my equine insurance program. It was kind of destined, possibly, because it then allowed me to go to Lloyd's, find my market with Markel, who would hire me, and I would develop the equine insurance program, which would develop into the second largest equine insurance program in the world. And I'm very proud of that. And none of that probably would have happened had I not had that first challenge. But what was very interesting, though, is it didn't stop there. When I left and went to Lloyd's, it was all men. Women had just been allowed to go on the Lloyd's floor. So I was one of the first people to place insurance at Lloyd's, being a woman. And so that was my second, probably, awakening into the fact that I was living in a man's world. And fortunately, I had a mother who had had a pretty hard childhood and was on her own when she was 16. She taught my sister and I how to be independent, to be confident, to work hard, and to have dreams, and to know that I could achieve them. Anything I wanted to do or be, I could be. And I lived in a country where that was allowed. I see that now being bestowed to the women in the Middle East. And I do believe that they are now starting to enjoy those freedoms. I would only, and I do agree with all of that. I just hope that they don't go as radical as some of the women in this country have, because it is really nice to still have a man open a door for you, even though that's very seldom anymore. It is still nice to get a compliment from a man, even though that is not done hardly ever anymore. I try to compliment women because men are afraid to compliment women because they're afraid they'll get sued or whatever. So for me, I was one of the original women livers in my country. But I also see how some women have taken advantage of that, and some have made it a little more difficult for some of us who do appreciate having the fact that we are women and we are achieving success in what we do. We've worked hard for it. I know Amanda has, I know you probably have too. Nothing comes easy, and you've got to work for it.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and if you do, then you'll be rewarded. And I believe that if you have faith in God, and He, I do believe, sees good in people, and He helps those who are good. I really do believe that.
True. You're absolutely right. God does try and find and reward those that have shown positivity, have shown good qualities, all those positive things that we sort of morally look at, all those things do get rewarded.
I have always believed
patience. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I have always believed that the Arabian horse was the key to peace in the Middle East. I have believed that since I was a little girl. Yeah. And I'm not sure why I have always believed that, but I do.
I'm sure it is.
Horses heal.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What are the qualities and the skills that you think are essential for doing well in this demanding field? And, you know, how have you sort of cherry picked those from your toolbox, so to speak, and sort of sharpened them over your career, during your career?
Honesty is the first word that comes to my mind. Because in this industry, if you're not truthful, your reputation will be ruined in a minute. It takes a lifetime to gain a reputation in this industry as being a good person, a fair person, a person who contributes and gives back to the industry. You can do that all day long, but if you do something that is wrong, that's bad or whatever, it comes back, it gets spread throughout this industry in a heartbeat. And so I think that if you're honest with people and you're a good person, then I think that is the first thing that is needed to stay in this industry as long as we have. You also have to contribute, and you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice for the others so that they can have races. We did that so many times, and putting horses in conditions that they shouldn't have been in, that if we would have waited, we could have had the next race and won it. But because of trying to keep racing alive, especially in this country, there were times when we had to make sacrifices. And I think that's the key to any success, is how much are you going to sacrifice? And again, it goes back to, if you're in this industry as long as I have been, over 40 years, you know, you're not in this unless you've made sacrifices. But those sacrifices also give you fabulous rewards. And it's what my vocation and advocation are the same thing. I'm blessed. Not everybody gets to do and what I've been able to do and have the success that I've been able to have. Because of Markel and my work experience, it allowed me to travel all over the world. And that too complemented and taught me how to be a breeder and how to go around some of these bloodlines I did not feel possessed Arabian type. I still do want my Arabian horses to look like Arabians. When you drive by my farm, you look out there, you can tell those are Arabians. They exemplify their type. And I'm very proud of that. But it was something that I really, really was committed to. And there were many times when we were not winning because of my selections, because I didn't want to breed like a fad. I needed to figure out a real breeder figures out a new link. A breeder is not a breeder if all you're going to do is the same thing that everybody else has done, you know? And then what you do is you ruin the breed itself, because then you start inbreeding and then you start shrinking the horse, you start exemplifying the faults. It really, breeding is not an easy thing to do, and neither is racing. And so, like in our case, we were trying to do both. And when in our country, we have what is referred to as the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and we are to show an intent to profit 2 years out of 7 in our country, or we cannot get our tax deductions that are given to us with having our operations. So it made it very difficult when we were trying to develop 2 different entities, when each entity itself commands a lot of expense, time, and intelligence and practice. You're gonna breed a mare. What my theory is to cross a mare twice onto a stallion. That way it would allow me to sell one if I wanted to, but it also reassured me that yes, the link that the nick I was trying to go for was consistent or it wasn't consistent. That was my normal procedure. And then I would always outcross. So for me, I consider myself a breeder. I take a lot of pride in that, and not just as an owner. I think anybody can buy a good horse. Not everybody can breed a good horse. And so for me, that is the key. Because I don't have children and these are my children, when I see one of because I do birth them out myself, when I watch them succeed to the levels such as a first class, who's the only horse to have ever won 3 $1 million or greater races in a 1-year time frame, or Treasured Moments, my endurance mare that just was given the Wahoo Horse of the Year award. She's the first filly to have ever been given it. She just shattered the Tevis track record at Tevis in 15 hours and 14 minutes, bridleless, 100 miles through the Sierra Nevada mountain range. She did that in 15 hours and 14 minutes. No horse has ever done that before, and she did it bridleless. She raced before she went into endurance. Now she's owned by the man who took her to Tevis. She has been to Tevis 5 times. It is classified as our hardest and our best endurance ride in the United States, and the most grueling. And she just did this a couple months ago. And so between her and myself, between her and myself, between she and first class, they've given me so much pride and so much, oh God, they've made my dreams come true. And your dreams are the wishes from your heart, I do believe. Absolutely. And I do believe when you have that passion in your heart, you know, you'll be rewarded.
True, absolutely. Now, breeding, racing, all this involves long hours, physical labor, decision making, tough decisions sometimes. So how do you maintain your work-life balance? Do you have, are you able to put together a work-life balance? Or do you prioritize the farm? How do you do it? Yeah.
It's really difficult. I'm not sure exactly how I do it. But the wonderful thing is because it is my passion, it doesn't seem like work. So for me, I usually sleep in 3 to 4 hour increments.
Mhm.
And then I'm up and I am discussing with either Doug or my previous trainers, be it Jean or Alban or Amanda or any of a number of friends that I have in the Middle East. And so for me, I don't have a consistent life. I throw as many balls up in the air in any given day and hope that I get to catch them all. And then I go take a rest. I fortunately have a beautiful pool that my husband has built for me that's enclosed. And when I get real depressed or sad or can't figure out where I should go, I go down and I swim laps. And when I swim laps, it allows me to think. I've been fortunate because I have, although I don't have children, I do have a good 10, almost all lady friends who are guiding me, giving me support. They are my circle of ladies that help guide me. I have surrounded myself with the women in the industry that I feel are movers and shakers, and women who have the same passion and commitment that I do, willing to sacrifice everything and anything for the Arabian horse in particular. And so that is what balances my life out, because it's just a constant passion.
Yeah.
And so you don't get tired. I mean, you do, but you want to see it continue on. I have spent all my life doing this. I don't want to see it end. We're having struggles here in the United States, and I quit racing the year that I took first class out of the United States. And it was because of the industry fighting amongst itself. And it's a big country.
Yeah.
And try and maintain race meets at one end of the country to the other, it's very difficult to do. You can't just put your horses in a trailer and it takes you 3 days to get across, okay? 2 to 3 days.
Yep.
And that's going nonstop, okay? Through all different kinds of mountain ranges, okay? To get from one side to the other. And so it has not been easy.
Yep.
I hope that the Middle East understands that it's nice to play in your own sandbox, but everybody has to play nice in the big sandbox. And the big sandbox is Arabian horse racing as a whole, globally. How do you expand it? How do you get it to have the respect and the recognition that the thoroughbred industry has? That didn't happen overnight either. But when you look at the ability that the Arabian horse has, as opposed to the thoroughbred horse, we are sitting in such an ideal seat in the respects that we have artificial insemination, we have embryo transfer, there are assets and benefits to our breed that the thoroughbred industry doesn't have, not to mention all of the other countries that Arabians could run in that possibly aren't. Whereas there are no thoroughbreds in those countries. So Arabian racing could go mega big,
True.
providing it is nurtured and guided. Unfortunately, I do not feel that IFAR, which is our International Federation of Arabian Horse Racing Board, is doing all that they can do. There is a lot of inner fighting, and unfortunately, power grabbing is, you know, this person wants to do it for his shake and this person wants to do it for his shake. And if they aren't careful, they will end up in the same situation that we have already experienced in the United States. And that is us not supporting each other for the good of Arabian racing globally. And that's what it gets down to. We need people to understand that we cannot have grade 1 stakes races going back to back up against each other in these different countries, only a week or 2 weeks apart from each other. They are defeating their purpose. They will, yes, their sheikh or their Royal Highness will win the race. And then people such as myself, who is an independent person, why do I want to play in your world? If you are not going to open it up to people such as myself to really compete on a global basis, or keep your race meet to yourself with your own horses, do not expand the breed, do not expand racing, do not expand the horse as it could be. People need to start paying attention to this, and they need to start realizing what is happening. And I hope that they listen to my words, because we have already experienced it. And I can tell you, my husband and I personally have spent and I'm not even talking Markel here, in which Markel has given back to the horse community as a whole in not only millions and millions of claim dollars, but in also sponsorship and supporting of the horse industry as a whole globally. They have done that. Markel has done that. My husband and I, we have lost millions personally trying to build an industry in the United States. The IRS is not happy with me because I have not been able to show them that profit, but they know I am trying very hard to do that. But it gives us another step of difficulty. Not only in our country do we have to face the fact that each state is guided by its own racing laws. And so when Arabians came into this industry, we were not licensed to race in states. We had to go before legislation in order to get Arabians approved to run in those states, be it Delaware Park, be it Texas, be it California. And each of those hoops that we had to jump through cost money in order to do that. The Arabian Jockey Club was formalized by a group of men and women who put up monies in order to establish it. And what it originally did was it bought the ability to keep the race records in the data source bases that they needed to be in order for our betting public to bet on them. And it was a big deal in this country in order to get that taken care of. And it could only be done with a body of men and women who made those sacrifices. And they did. And they founded the Arabian Jockey Club. My husband is one of those people, as well as myself. We were also very instrumental in being one of the founding members of ARO, the Arabian Racing Organization out of the UK. We were one of the founding members there. We have committed our lives to Arabian horse racing. My husband has also committed his life to other things as well. He founded an autism school. And so we have even auctioned off horses at our autism galas in the past. just to get people interested in Arabian horse racing.
Right.
So my husband has another life besides Markel being, he was the chairman, he's the past chairman of Markel. But so we have been always very involved and very committed, and he has taught me to be a person who gives back to an industry that rewards you however.
So that means you don't have a work-life balance.
Yeah, probably.
Right. Now you're an inspiration to a lot of women, especially from the Arabian industry, the Arabian world, globally. Now, what advice would you give to young women that want to go into careers, whether that's breeding, racing, or some other part of the industry? And they could be looking at thoroughbreds or Arabians. But what advice would you give women who want to venture into those areas?
It goes without saying that you have to learn your product. And if you have a passion, you'll want to learn it. So first comes the passion, then comes the knowledge. And to be able to travel, but even in today's age, I didn't have the benefit of the internet when I started. You can learn so much now on the internet, and people like Amanda who have put together websites, it's amazing what you can learn from those websites. But I'll tell you, it's not anywhere near as good as going there in person. And when you step on, you know, I've been to so many farms. As soon as you step on a farm, you know, you get a reading right off the bat because you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's organized. It's happy. The horses are happy. You see it, you feel it, you know it. It just is there. And so the words that I would tell any person, especially a young woman, have the passion, learn what you want to do as much as you can, and then you won't have to worry because you'll be successful because it's what you love, and you will always want to learn more things and make things better. And I believe that's really all that you really have to do is to want it and to learn, and travel. Travel is the best thing. I was very fortunate because I was able to travel all over the world on Markel's dime, quite frankly, and what it taught me, and the friendships that I have developed. Those are those 10 women that I was telling you about. Those have really developed because of my travels and knowing them for 40 years, 30, 40 years, these women. And they've always been supportive of me. And now that they see my success with First Class or Treasured Moments, they're truly happy for me. And that's what's extra special about it, because they all know how hard I've worked.
That's rare. That's rare to get women, especially women, to sort of form that supportive circle. You can get a couple of them, but 10 women, 10, 12 women putting together that kind of a circle is amazing.
I would have to say that is credit to horse racing industry, because again, I've been in it since I was a young girl, and it doesn't matter where you travel in the world. I've worked in Dubai, America. I'm originally from Canada. I'm actually originally from England. I've worked in Australia. The community that's in our horse racing, whether it be thoroughbred or Arabian, that is the connection where you do build a lot of great friendships. So I would say maybe the racing industry or horse industry in general, I think is the better way to say it, does really have a way to build and take women relationships, because we all have to support each other. You know, so I think maybe that's the difference of just maybe a general statement. Horse women stick together.
They do.
True. Now, there's a growing movement to promote diversity and inclusion of women in the racing industry. So have you seen any specific initiatives or changes, whether that's at your farm, in the community, at the broader community, or in organizations over this 40-year period, where they've gone from being a little hesitant when it comes to women to really accepting them and supporting them and bringing them into the community?
I'm going to tell you a story. When I was first getting into racing, I had to go out to Los Alamitos racetrack. And I go by Deborah Mihaloff, and my husband goes by Alan Kirshner. I established my equine business under my own name. I was not married at that time. So I call Los Alamitos about one of my horses, and I proceed to talk to the racing secretary. And I say, this is Deborah Mihaloff, and my husband is Alan Kirshner. And the first thing that comes out of his mouth is, oh, you're one of those women livers.
Oh
That's
my. What year was that?
when we first started running out at Los Alamitos. It was the very
86, 87, wow.
maybe even 84 or 85, because we were on the circuit, okay? And we went down there. And I remember when he said that to me, I got so pissed. You have to understand my heritage. I'm half Bulgarian. My father's parents came from Bulgaria. His sister and brother were born in Bulgaria. I'm a second generation here as far as I'm concerned. And even still, I grew up with people in my community knowing I was not, let's put it this way, I was half Bulgarian, okay?
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. When he said that to me, I came back to him and I said, excuse me, I am the last of the Mihaloffs in my family. And I wanted to carry on my family's name. And so I kept my own name. That man started backpedaling and apologizing to me. But I will never forget that first comment out of his mouth was, oh, you're one of those women livers. That's what he said to me. And I'll never forget that. And so, yes, we have been fighting that battle forever. And we're probably going to continue fighting it, because it is a man's world out there. There's no doubt about it. But you know what? My mother always did say, use what God gave you to your benefit, Deb. And you have a beautiful smile, and be nice to people, and they will be nice to you.
True.
So again, my mother's words inspiring me because she knew it was still a man's world, but she wanted me to have the confidence to go out there and try and do whatever I wanted to do. So I was very blessed because I had a great mom. And, so not all women are given that. And I hope that if I can inspire anybody, in which I don't look at myself as somebody that people look up to, maybe because I think then I'd have to be old, and I don't want to be old. It's a wonderful compliment. And I would just hope that whatever be it a veterinarian, be it a racing secretary, be it a jockey, in our country, I'll go back on another story. I will never forget going to the Darley Awards, and there was a female jockey who was winning everything at that time out in California, and I can't remember her name, but she had to register before me, and she had on a strapless evening gown. And when she bent over to sign her name, and I looked at all the ripples of the muscle on her back, my mouth dropped open, And I said to myself, my God, girl, we hadn't given the awards yet.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, you deserve this award over all the rest of them were all men in her
Yeah.
category. She
Yeah.
did win it. But I'll never forget because she had a child, like you, Amanda, she had a child as well. What these women jockeys have been able to do.
Yeah.
Now that's who I look up to. Those are the people, or like my trainer, Lynn Ashby, who's been doing this for ages and was classified as one of the 10 leading trainers in the United States. And she did it all with Arabian horses practically. I mean, she had only a handful of thoroughbreds, and she was competing against all thoroughbred women. I mean, when I think about, those are the women that inspire me.
Yeah.
And women like my mother who told me you could do anything. Those are the true people that deserve the recognition. I really feel that, again, when you look at horse racing in the United States, women were allowed to be jockeys much sooner than what was recognized in Europe or in the Middle East, obviously the Middle East. But what those trailblazers did for us, you'd be amazed. Most of them started on Arabian horses, which just it blows my mind. Not only the females, but the males as well.
Yeah.
You know, they say, oh yeah, I learned how to ride, on an Arabian. And it's because of the attitude the Arabian has and the gentle disposition and the intelligence that the breed has. And then after they got their feet wet and they started getting recognized, or they were bug rider, they then went into the thoroughbred industry and became great jockeys. But it really, those are the women who amaze me. Or like on my panel in Abu Dhabi, the one veterinarian at Sharjah, what she's been able to accomplish and have a family. I didn't feel I could have a family and achieve what I wanted to achieve at that time. I think it's a little easier today, but you go back, 50 years ago, and that was just not the way it was. I was either going to have a business and be a businesswoman, or I was going to raise a family. And now women can do both, and I admire them. I really admire women who take on that challenge of both.
Yeah, there are some very, like Amanda.
Yes, yes, exactly like Amanda. And that's
1984, I got my jockey's license, 1984, and in Canada at Woodbine. And there was definitely a very good little group that really supported me, but I had, some of the bad stories. They didn't even have room in the jocks room. They put a little tiny trailer around at the back, and I had to go to the trailer. Like, I was like maybe the third woman in Canada that was riding at Woodbine, which was the big track. And so, I mean, I just used to be, you know what? It's my turn too. Get out of my way. So you just got to keep trying.
Keep trying.
I just love it that you just let them look at her rear end.
Well, I do have a funny story, but I don't really want to go live with it. I'll tell you over wine later.
Yeah, it is a cute story because I know which one she's thinking.
Well, then I've got to hear it. If you're coming down to Dubai, we've definitely got to do this.
Oh, yes. We'd love to meet up with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you coming down for the World Cup or the Saudi Cup?
Yes,
It all depends.
Definitely coming.
Yeah, for me, it's all going to depend on my husband's health. But, I would love to. Yes, obviously. And Amanda, even if I can't, Amanda should go because she'll be representing Cre Run in first class, no matter where he runs. So it starts, the Dubai Kayla Classic ends up 1 week before my first maiden is due. And
Yeah.
depending on how she looks is going to depend on whether or not I will come. But the nice thing is now with the television cameras, you can watch everything on my phone. No matter where I'm at, I can go out to dinner and I can continue to make sure she's still doing okay. So
Exactly.
that's
Exactly. And if you don't come to Dubai, then what are we going to do with your Lamborghini?
Oh,
Yes. You and I will drive it and send Deb a picture.
Yeah, she would. Yeah, well, she's a Corvette girl too.
Yeah. And a Mustang.
Exactly. So you've got to come down specifically to drive that Lamborghini to Medan.
Okay, that's the deal.
Right. Now, the next question is, horse racing industry faces a lot of challenges when it comes to, now you've mentioned profit earlier, but from an animal welfare standpoint, there's a lot of pressure probably to do well. So maybe there's a lot of people that cut corners, that go down the unsustainable route, they go down the unethical route. How do you sort of circumvent all that to stay above board? Yes, it means taking a hit with the IRS, but then it means keeping your conscience clear. What do you do?
Yeah, I kept my conscience clear. I have trainers that I can trust. If I can't trust my trainer with what I feel is my child, then they're not going to have my horse. When I do my partnerships and my leases, I have one of the clauses states that I have control over who the trainer is. I believe that the trainer is the key to everything. The jockey is what puts the final touch on whether you're going to win that race or not. But all that foundation has to be with that trainer. And so for me, when you pick an ethical trainer, such as I have done over the years, be it Lynn Ashby, be it Alban Delamere, be it Jean Delamere, be it Ernst Ortel, be it Doug Watson, I take a lot of pride in making sure that I have my horses in good hands that I know are not going to be drugging my horses, and I'm not going to have to worry about them being abused. And part of that has come with being in the industry as long as I have, hearing stories. I've been in an ideal situation too, that because of the insurance, it's given me information that normal public would never know, be it losses that are happening through certain farms or certain training styles or whatever it is. I had that benefit also from veterinarian studies in that before Markel. So for me, I have, it's one of the reasons why I've always believed in doing everything possible for my horses, just to even see if it worked, if it didn't work. I have a colt out in the pasture now that the same veterinarian who did Barbaro leg did my horse's leg.
Dr. Richardson.
My horse has survived. And it was a front knee in my horse's case, but it was virtually the same type of scenario of a healing process. And we did it to see, just from an insurance standpoint, if for no other reason. So I always have believed in technology, utilizing the newest things that come out onto the market. I was one of the first people that used that antibacillus paste. There was a reason for it. But on the same hand too, hopefully we all learned from our past experiences.
And I have to say also, regarding racing, a lot of the troubles, one thing America has finally done, which is have one governing body, HISA, which is trying to get, as we obviously have a lot of states that race and nobody wants to follow the same rules. So at least this under an umbrella now. Nothing is perfect. It's a work in progress. Not everybody runs their business like Deb and I with integrity. Again, hiring the trainers that we know will not juice them or whatever you want to call it, and some of the unthinkable things that people do it because they don't have integrity. But one of my main things that I believe in is that the owner's responsibility to be involved. It's the owner's responsibility to pick the trainers that they know are not doing that moving forward. You don't want to, that is really their responsibility, because every owner gets bills. Every owner gets a vet bill. And for the trainers that are being run by veterinarians, which is one of our major problems here in America, if the owner is at the end of it, because somebody's paying for that. So if you as the owner do not open your eyes and say, wow, okay, I'm paying as much for my vet bill as I am for my training bill, and you don't have any suspect as what's going on, then that's on you. And that's what we need to clean this up. And everybody needs to support trainers that are doing it right, that are ethical, that are value-based, and that is going to make the biggest change in our industry. So it's owner responsibility.
And to continue on with that point, Amanda's so right with that, because as I have now taken back first class running under Alan's and my name, and are responsible for this horse's future. I don't have my partner taking charge and figuring out how we're going to run this horse. Although I have to say, my partner we always discussed how we were going to go forward with this horse. But now that it is just totally on my shoulders, it is a big responsibility, especially, from somebody over here in the United States. It's difficult for me from a standpoint when I have a horse that's running on the other side of the world, and be it time-wise in trying to communicate, or even learning, as I am now doing with the international program that we are now establishing. It is all a learning curve for myself, for Donna, for Amanda, and but it is a fabulous and exciting industry, and I think we're all really happy with what we see for the future. There is a lot to be happy about. We've been trying to enter a maiden horse that I have there, and the last nomination number was 73, Amanda, was it?
73 original entries for one
Original
day. And there isn't another one coming up on the turf. So, and to follow through with that, like to give credence to the UAE. I mean, they've done a fantastic job on promoting it, getting more owners. They have the most Arabian horses probably in the world at their doorstep. So it's just about them now paying attention. As Deb said, they need to know. I mean, we looked at the condition book, for instance, when we were there in discussion panels. There's something like 285 races offered for this season, and only 17 of them are specifically for fillies. That's another thing they need to open their mind to. Categorically, owners need, you could have as many fillies as colts. And if you're an owner running horses, why are the fillies still being penalized? In America, we have, it's more open that way, but in the UAE, they haven't got there yet. And so things like that. And I did hear the racing secretary from Meydan did, say, okay, now we have the problem where we have more horses than races. So at least they're paying attention, and I give them a lot of credit, but that definitely needs to be addressed. What we do here is if a race overfills, we will split it in the race office that day. In other words, they'll make 2 races. That sort of progression needs to start happening. But again, it is the UAE is the place to go. A few years ago, one of the partnerships horses I had, I begged them, please send her, because I saw, unfortunately, we were witnessing the digression of Delaware, and knew that it was, if you want to keep going, you got to go international. And Deb gets all the credit for saying, let's do it. And, away we went. And, but yeah, it's a blessing to have that option where you're not fighting with no horses to fill a race. And now it's the other end of the spectrum. That can be fixed easily. So to play in this game over there is, it's just so exciting to me. And there's a little bit of tweaks, but I give a lot of credit to the UAE for where it is now. And it's exciting for the future.
And that's why my 2 horses are there.
Yeah. It's getting there. It's almost, it's there. It's another 2-3 years out. Looking ahead now, this is about Cre Run Farm specifically. what are the aspirations and goals you have for your farm and for the Arabian breed in the coming years?
What I would like to see happen at Cre Run is we continue to develop our international breeding program.
Mhm.
I won't do it on quite the scale that I did my first breeding operations, because I would breed usually 20 to 30 mares a year. I will keep this small,
Mhm.
utilizing our wonderful blue hen mares,
Mhm.
and try to breed about 5 mares a year
Right.
going forward. I want to continue racing in the Middle East in
Mhm.
particular. I have a little bit of time between my yearling crop getting to the
Mhm.
age of racing. I'm hopeful that first class will have a couple more years of running,
Yeah.
as well as Winds of Fortune,
Mhm.
and they will tide me over, and then hopefully start with the new foal crops that I'm producing at this time. As for the industry as a whole,
Mhm.
I would like to see it grow on a more global scale.
Yeah.
Part of that is because of the loss in numbers in the United States. I would love to see support internationally come back into this country.
Mhm.
There was a time when Sheikh Mohammed almost had 1,000 Arabian horses here in the United States, and they were all for racing, okay, breeding, but it was all for what he was developing here as a racing program. This goes back in the 80s, and his vision was to help grow in the United States, but because of our certain states having to be approved and all of that entanglement, he knew it would be better to just develop his own program in the Middle East. And so
Yeah.
therefore he went and took his program,
Yeah.
got rid of his Arabian racehorses in this country, and it affected this industry
Yeah.
for a while, such as when the Bob Magnus herd was sold. He had 1,000 horses. You can't flood markets that are so small with 1,000 head of horses and then expect for the other people in that industry to survive it
Yeah.
as well. It becomes very difficult. I couldn't even sell a horse for $2,500 when Sheikh Mohammed let all those horses go out onto the marketplace.
Yeah.
He wanted them to get into hands where they would then utilize them and promote them and put the expense into them. And it worked in a couple cases, but not on the scale that it should have. And so that's what was disappointing in that regard.
Yep.
I'm just trying to think.
Makes sense. And now, so this, with your insurance work and then with the racing and the breeding, what are the kind of qualities that you think women should develop when it comes to leadership? If you want to really grow, whether that's in the general business sense or whether that's specific to the racing and breeding
They
industry.
need to quit talking on their phones and talk to somebody face to face. Maybe that would help. I'm serious. I don't know what we're going to do with the next generation because they are so into their phones, and I'm not so sure that they are going to be able to communicate really on a one-to-one basis with people, let alone with horses. I mean, think about it. They're losing their human touch. I don't like that. There's good things with technology, and then it also causes situations that need to be adjusted. Be it when you go out as a family, all the phones get put on the table in the middle of the table, type of a scenario, whatever it is. But they will never be able to continue an industry unless they can, one, communicate.
Yep.
And two, experience it, physically experience it.
Get your hands dirty, get in the barns,
Yes.
Yeah.
understand horse technology, not, well, if they want to call it that, but horsemanship, that's what it
Yeah.
is. You have to have that as a ground base. You really do. And you're missing out, in my opinion, because that's the best stuff. I mean, the mornings with your racehorses and watching them, go out and just gallop or breeze and then graze and, be done up by the people that love them. That is that's where all the heart and energy is, I think. So, as well as the, trying to get a win as well. But yeah.
When you see your horse come back to the winner's circle and it's puffing and blowing and it's full of sweat and it has just run the race of its life, and there is no greater thrill or anything that can pump your heart up bigger than to experience that. And I'm allergic to horse sweat, but you can best be believing I am touching that horse and loving on that horse with my hand, knowing that seriously I can go into anaphylactic shock at any given moment because I am definitely allergic to them. But you know what? It's what I love. It is, and to see that come from something that you helped get to that point, and you see them give that heart and that courage and the depth of scope that they have in order to achieve that, it's the most incredible thing that a person can experience. For me, that's does it for me.
Absolutely. I'm going to taper off here a little bit, go off track, but you were talking about phones. And I remember when, I used to work for a company, and we used to have these weekly meetings, and every meeting, 20, 30 salespeople and some journalists, the room would be full, and every time the boss would say, put your phones on the table, or I'm going to put them into a glass of water if I see any of you playing with your phones. And that was a running joke between all of us, because they're like, look, I can understand they're taking a journalist's phone and sticking it in water, but they're never going to take a salesperson's phone, especially if he or she says they were talking to a client. So this went on and on and on and on and on for a very long time. And of course, at some point, people started getting lax. And at one point, one day, I think he was in a really bad mood. He comes in, starts talking, and there was somebody that was on his phone. He just picked up the phone and dropped it in a clear glass of water, which was on his desk. And he said, it doesn't matter. It's disrespectful. You should be present and you should be able to communicate clearly. Keep your phones out so that you can stay immersed in the conversation around you. And that's a visual aid I've never forgotten.
Yeah.
Nice.
Smart man.
Yeah, he did it. I think out of 365 days, he talked about it for about 200 days. And then one fine morning when he was really not in the mood for it, went and dumped somebody's phone in a glass of water. So I still visualize, I can still close my eyes and visualize that happening.
And nowadays, the person whose phone that was would be able to sue his boss, probably get the boss's job because he put the phone in the water. I mean, the whole world is upside down right now.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
It's gone crazy. So I do hope that our horses can bring peace to the Middle East.
There you go.
Peace.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we need. Right. Now, what does it mean to be a leader in your industry? Being a woman, you're a leader in both the racing as well as the breeding industry. And how do you hope to inspire other people to, and empower them to sort of pursue this as a dream for them?
I do have to say that since my horse has been doing as much as he has accomplished, it has put me in a position where I do know that people are watching me.
Yeah.
And therefore, I haven't been able to party quite as hardy as I used to, quite frankly. So has it interrupted my lifestyle? Yes,
Yeah.
it has.
Except when
Because-
we get together over in Paris or Abu Dhabi, then we make up for it.
But yes, no, I try to be a very good girl when it has to do with business. There's, you know, it really has kind of calmed me down a little bit being in this position, because you don't want people to think bad of you, or to think that you're silly, or that you're not a serious person or anything. And let's face it, everybody needs to let loose every now and then. And it is nice to have a good fun time. But on the same hand too, we're in countries where we need to be respectful. And I have always felt, whether it be going to California, you adhere to their rules and regulations. You run in Delaware, you adhere to their rules and regulations. You go to another country, you're respectful of their rules and regulations, and you try to conduct yourself in a manner in which people aren't saying, oh, those ugly Americans. That's one thing that Alec Cortellis used to say to my husband at Delaware Park, when we'd be at Delaware Park. He'd say, Alan, we're the only class they've got.
Oh.
And to hear Alec in his Greek accent say that, because at that time Delaware Park was mainly a claiming thoroughbred racetrack, and our Arabians were very much the quality at that track. They were owned by Dr. Armand Hammer. They were owned by Sheikh Mohammed. So we were the only class at that time. So, but it reminds me of that. And so I have always tried to conduct myself, be it in the way I wear my clothes, or the way I conduct myself when I'm at a racetrack, or even at a hotel afterwards. You know, I really tried to clean up my act, so to speak.
Well, that concludes our very long interview. Thank you so much. I mean, it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you once again.
May I interrupt 1 second?
Yeah,
just to do a tiny little bit of what do we call housekeeping here. When Deb was talking about the farm and the future and all that, really would like you to include Deb offers, which is a completely unique thing here anyway, an on-site lease mare program. So what we have, or Deb has available, she has a library of over 20 mares that all have, as you know, the pedigrees that Deb speaks about. That what she's offering is people can lease that mare on site, but you can lease the mare, and that gets you a way to get into her, you know, breeding and all the different lovely lines, successful champion lines, be it racing or endurance. And people can lease for that breeding year. They have the opportunity to pick their own stallion. And with Deb's, you know, also having Deb's counsel and advice, which is guidance. The horse will be bred through the concierge service at Cre Run. All the, you know, fees are picked up by the leaseor, but it's a beautiful way and an opportunity for anyone that wants to get to a different level in their breeding program. It's offered by Cre Run Farm. So if you could just, that's another very important thing in Deb's program.
Yeah, we try to, we want people to be able to have this experience. It's why we've always believed in our partnerships and our lease programs for our horses, because we've always wanted to share it with others and get them involved in it. And the nice thing is in the majority of the cases, well, in fact, really almost all of them, we have made profits. And if they weren't making a profit, we put in a different horse, because we always wanted them to have a good experience. Be it our lease program for our racehorses or our lease program for our mares, it is one of the easiest ways to be able to get into an industry at a top level. You obviously have to wait for the foal to grow up, and there are obstacles in that regard. But for the most part, people could not have the opportunity of the quality of these mares that are being offered. She is correct.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Thank you for having us speak with you today. This is I take it as an honor, and I really want to thank you.
No, I really
Absolutely,
appreciate.
I concur.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.